Stewart, and I've just been doing some soul work today, you guys. But I want to talk a little bit about um, one of the hardest things to overcome, I think, for anybody is in on so many levels because of how personal it is and how upsetting it can be on both ends of it, but just the idea of changing a relationship dynamic, um, especially for probably the more sensitive, if there is one, a more sensitive person in a relationship. It could be a friendship, a partnership, marriage, whatever. Um, and specifically, I'm seeing this a lot for females right now. Well, always, anyways, but um, it's not easy to change out of how a relationship dynamic has always been when it's just like an agreed upon knowing or system that this is how things are supposed to be, and then one partner gets to a point where they're not satisfied anymore, or they're not able to fulfill that role for whatever reason, and then not knowing how to move on with that. Like, you're not taught to how to move on with that. You've always been taught to be kind and be compassionate, and especially for females, to be emotionally responsible for everybody in the family, and being more sensitive and being able to understand what everybody's needs are, and not just like the protector or like the provider. That's what I meant to say. Um, and then getting to a place where you have to actually care about yourself first and foremost, which is really how we're supposed to be as humans. But these programs that we are under and a part of and living with, because it's our everyday life and we run on programs, mostly subconscious, so we just accept it and do it and then feel wrong for not fitting into it anymore. We're outgrowing it, and so it's really hard. So it's hard for a female who feels wrong for, or will be called selfish, if she does something to care about herself. Well, usually for a female who's already emotionally sensitive, already in a relationship where she's been thinking about the emotional needs of every single person except for herself, and this isn't just females, but primarily this week it has been, as it's been coming up, and then feeling like they're not allowed to make a change, or coming up with other changes, or distracting things, or like, what can I do better to make myself happier in this area to balance like this unhealthy relationship that I'm in, that maybe needs to just be stirred up anyways, just to like have stuff come up so you can both be growing in who you are. And we're often not taught that either. A lot of societal norms are like, don't share what you're experiencing or going through, and so it just ends up being like the relationship gets to a place of just like bland, everyday, just doing what we're supposed to do without much knowledge of growth opportunity, because that feels a lot like, I mean, it's shameful. You feel wrong for not being able to be happy, at least for a lot of females. It's easier usually on the maybe partner or friend who is more certain of themselves, or maybe they haven't been through many life experiences that have taught them anything other than what they know. They've only ever seen what they've seen through their own perspective. They've only experienced like basically what they were taught from their parents. A lot of times they're like the ones who like run away from their situations in a lot of ways, so they don't have to grow, because it is painful to have to grow, and growth looks like shame. It feels like shame. It feels like being wrong and like being embarrassed and not being good enough, because you're fitting under the dynamic of what you're supposed to be instead of who you really are. So as you're going through this, I know for me it's always helped if I can really process and honor, because it is easier when you care about these people deeply. You love these people, and to you, love is more than a transaction, right? And so it's always helped me to be able to say, I understand that this person is here in the position that they're in, and just being able to say that, I understand that your perspective is this, and from my perspective, I am emotionally dying inside. I feel like I'm not fulfilling the purpose that I was here for. I'm not happy. And just being able to say that and get those words out, even onto paper, And then look into that further, because there's nothing wrong. A lot of times we end up in this place where we are fixers of everything. We're creators of everything. And so we're like, we'll come up with a solution to make everything look okay or be okay, or there's something I have to heal or fix or clear in myself in order to just be happy, because I was taught, like, just be happy, instead of validating how you're actually feeling, getting so real with those feelings, and not having an expected outcome. Because that's another thing that will stop us, is having this expectant outcome on something. Like, I have to be ejected from my life, or I'll surely be like left alone, abandonment issues, if I admit that I'm not happy with this person, or in this friendship, or in this relationship dynamic anymore. Instead of looking at it as, how can we both grow? And also, does this person want what's best for me? And do I want what's best for me? Do I want what's best for the other person? And does the other person want what's best for the other person? And that can never require each other. Your life and relationships and friendships should be amplified. They should be better because of the relationships that are in it. But if one partner or the other is dependent on the other person for their own happiness, that will drain the other human being to death. That will drain them to death, and get to a place where one person is suffocating and one is just upset because they don't understand why the other person can't just be happy. It's very unhealthy, but it's also very, very, very normal. This happens all the time, where we're supposed to be in these roles of, like, societal norms, and so we just won't express what we're feeling because we want to be honorable or kind or compassionate, and those are beautiful things, but are you honoring who you are first? Because, I mean, the world needs you, first of all. You need you. You'll die younger, and that's not meant to be funny. You really will die younger. You won't live as long. You deserve 100% to be who you are unapologetically. There's not any system in the world that should be controlling you outside of that intrinsic system of living your truth unapologetically, so you're not held back in anything. But we're taught in all of these ways, all of these coping mechanisms, where it's like, be less you, or fit in more, or do this for school, get this grade, get this job, all of this, like, linear timeline accomplishment nonsense that doesn't even make sense, because who fits into that? Like, nobody, because they're all pretending if they are fitting into it, and that's what their worth is valued in. That's like probably 99% of humans that in my personal experience, I could be wrong, but that's what my personal experience is with that, where really what life is about is none of those things. Like, it's all relational. It's all in ourselves. It's all our personal growth and our ability to speak our truth and experience and love and find unity and go through all these things to have the greatest impact, and to live with total, complete peace, satisfaction, and know that you're on your path, not because somebody told you you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to be, but because you know you're on your path and you're still living in it, not dying in it. There was something else. The other coping mechanisms. A lot of times, like, you'll see people who are, like, manifesting illnesses that are coming up, so that you have a reason to have compassion, or get back to that ground zero, or, like, be allowed to connect with somebody, because of you're not allowed to unless you're, like, ill, because you have to have it all together all the time. You're like, you have to be going, or, like, shopping addiction, or I think I said alcohol, drugs, taking, like, any kind of medication really to be good enough or be less yourself, not being allowed to, like, speak up and all that, like, cleaning, which can be healthy. I mean, I'm like a meditative cleaner. I like to clean, like, as a form of relaxation. But if you're just doing these things that you're either using as a tool to hide yourself or be better, that's not growth. That's, like, helping in, like, this self-sacrifice. Another one, this is a big one that I've really had to look within about, because a lot of people are in roles, like service-based roles, where you know the things that haven't been honored in you, and so instead of, like, healing and nurturing and filling those spaces with love, we use that knowledge to then help other people, which is not a bad thing at all. We just have to make sure we're not still living a life of we're doing everything for that, where that our worth is coming from that, because your worth is so much more than that. So I hope that helps. Start journaling. Get real with yourself. Get, like, my tagline is like, the reality is, not trying to understand or justify or explain why everybody's in the position they are, but what is actually being felt. What are you actually lacking? What are you actually missing out on? What does that feel like? Because that's what clears it out. That's what gets momentum going forward for change, and not feeling stuck and not feeling like you've got to have everything figured out. It's actually taking the action and moving into something that will benefit you and also help bring out a lot of truth about who's in your life that will support you in that. And clear the shame as you're doing it too, because shame is the result of these beliefs that we're supposed to be something that we're not. And especially in childhood, my phone's ringing. If you were ever, a lot of it, like, there's different ways of parenting. If you were one that was made wrong, like you are unacceptable as a human being for doing this thing or acting out, or like you should need to be shunned from society by like being put in like timeout, like I can't deal with you if you're nearby, handle your stuff on your own, that will manifest now and come up in ways of feeling like you are ashamed. So then you'll need to be clearing that out too, and have a therapist, have a support system, have a group of people who do want what's best for you, so that you can have that spoken into you, that you are deserving, you are love, you are, and get real with that. Get so in tune with that. Another good one, I posted something about this morning too, but closing your eyes, visualize a white light over your heart, and then put your hands on your heart and say to yourself, I love you. And do that as many times as you have to. Another one I will frequently do is when I know it's just human stuff that I'm trying to clear and I can't think clearly, I will repeat the mantra over and over, more of you, less of me, more of you, less of me. So I remember who I am from like the big divine perspective, and not just what the world says I am or what the people in my life have told me I'm supposed to be. So I love you. You are so worthy and so brave and so beautiful.